everyone, this is Danielle for Mixed Media Monday at Paper Issues. And today's subject is stencils. Now, the category stencils is quite big, so we're gonna split it up in different videos. And in today's video, I'm gonna go to focus on Pink Fresh Studios layering stencils, because this is only such a small part of the category stencils. So we're just gonna go layering today. And on other videos, you are gonna see the many other options you have for your stencils. So currently in the Paper Issue store, you will find, for example, this joyful peonies. Everyone says it different, I guess. This is a layering stencil set. This is kind of the end result if you use it with the matching stamp. I only have the stencil for this one, so I'm just gonna do the layering stencil. And I'm going to show you the Miss Your Smile stencil, and that one has the matching stamp set. This is the big flower that you find in the stencil, and it has some pretty sentiments that you can use on cards as well or on your layouts. So I'm going to start with the Miss Your Smile layering stencil. And it has 4 different layers. So all the Pink Fresh Studio layering stencils have a number in the top left corner. It is probably hard to see on camera, but this is stencil 1. Then you have number 2, 3, and 4. You do not necessarily have to do them in that specific order. I like to do the flowers first, and sometimes the leaf parts are mixed in. So you sometimes have, for stencil number 1, you have some flowers, and then for stencil number 2, you have a part of the leaves, and then it keeps switching it. I like to do the flowers first and then the leaf parts, but that could be different for everyone, and it doesn't really matter what order you do it. Now, these have the marks in the corners as well to match it up with your paper. For this one, because I'm gonna trim it anyway into a slimline card, I just have the edges of the stencil lined up here to my cardstock. And I'm gonna tape the cardstock down to my glass mat. And then I'm using another piece right here to put the stencil down as well. So this is the bigger flower part. You can see an example here on the back. So this is what it looks like with just the stencil, and this is the end result when you stamp it as well, which is what we're going to do today. Put this all aside. For the flowers, so for this stencil it's 2 colors, and I'm using scattered straw and wild honey. The first layer is going to be the lighter layer. I do not use scattered straw that often, but when I do, I'm always thinking I should use it more often because it's so pretty. It's weird how that works sometimes. See, this is really easy. There are no small detailed parts. Just go fill up the space. Oop, it's moving a little bit. I think I need another piece of tape here at the bottom. This one goes pretty quick and easy. So this one, most our layered stencils are designed for card making, but previous releases we've showed you already how you can easily translate them to your cards, to your layouts as well. For example, the hanging garden was a beautiful one where you can make a beautiful flower border at the top of your layout. And this one, because of the long design, it will be pretty on your layouts too. So this was the scattered straw color for the first stencil. I'm gonna remove this one now. And it doesn't really look like anything yet right now, but we'll get there. You will have to dry your layers in between, otherwise it can get a little bit muddy. That should be good enough. Now we move on to the second layer, which also happened to be stencil number 2. And here you're gonna see more detail of the flowers. So again, we're gonna line this up with the edge of the paper. And we'll move on to Wild Honey. This is also a very favorite of mine. I think I use this one the most when it comes to oranges. It is a really good color to use in sunsets. Again, this is a really easy stencil. There's no hard thinking involved. You just go in. And once I'm gonna lift this layer, you're already gonna be like, oh. I feel like because of the easiness of this, it makes you feel like an artist without any hard work. Okay, now I got this part covered. Ooh, that's gorgeous. Now we're going to dry this layer again. And it's not just for preventing the inks to get muddy, but also if you add a next layer of stencil, you could maybe smear it out, and you do not want to do that. Now we're moving on to stencil number 3, and this is where we start the leaves and some branches. So I'm lining the stencil up with the cardstock again. Now, have a look at the flowers as well. I am going to lower the stencil a little bit because I feel like the green would overlap in the orange a little too much. So don't just blindly stare at the outline of the stencil itself to line it up, but also look at your design if it makes sense. Now for this one, I'm starting with the lighter green first, which is Twisted Citron. Just like that, your leaves and branches are done for the first layer of it. Look how gorgeous. And we're gonna dry this again before we head into our second layer of green for the detailed part of the leaves. And this is layer number 4. So first I'm gonna line it up with the paper again, and then I'm gonna see if it makes sense with the part we've already done. And then I see I need to shift it a little bit. And then I'm going in with Mowed Lawn. For leaves, my favorite combination is always Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn. They are the perfect leaf colors to me. And again, just like that. And that's your stenciled image. Isn't it great how that, just like that, makes you look like an artist? You could leave it like this already because it's just gorgeous. But the stamp set has, oops, it has these pretty details here in the centers of the flowers. Let me remove this from here. I'll get my stamping tool. Just gonna put it here in the corner. Now probably your first thought would be stamping it with black ink, which is a possibility for sure, but to me it makes those lines a little too harsh, and I think it takes away from the pretty stenciling that you did here already. So let me place this one first. And to me, the best way to line up your stamp, or if you work with layering stamp sets, is to just look from all the sides to see if it lines up. And with a big stamp like this, it can be hard to have all the lines matching up because it simply moves in different directions. So once you have one piece lined up, it doesn't necessarily mean that another piece is exactly lined up either. So I'm just gonna try to do this as good as possible. And also, it's not a real big deal if it's not perfectly lined up. Because again, we're making art here. That's what we do with our crafting. And it is absolutely fine to be a little bit messy. So this is one of the Pink Fresh ink cube inks. And this is the second lightest color of the grays, the Rocky Slope. And that is what I prefer to use to ink those edges. Because like I said, with black, I find it a little too harsh. And it's hard to get it equally inked up all at once. So that's why I like to use the stamping tool. So I can go in a couple times, ink it up again if needed. So pretty. I think I got it all covered already. Perfect. Now we will have to dry this layer too. The Pink Fresh Studio inks are dye inks as well. And they could blend with the Distress Oxide inks if you don't dry it immediately. But I also have to say it really depends on where in the world you are. So where I'm at, it's very humid, especially this time of the year. So if I use my Pink Fresh Studio inks for layering stamps, I have to make sure one layer is 100% dry before I put the next layer in. Otherwise I'm getting a really ugly mix of colors. It's gonna blend, and that's not what you want with layering stamps. And that's just simply because of humidity, and we do not have AC here, which could also make a big difference. If you have AC, you're usually fine to go. Okay, so this is your finished image. Isn't that gorgeous? So I already made this one before, and this is the finished card. So you just trim the image, and I backed it with some black cardstock to make it pop a little more. And then right now in the paper issue shop, we also have these Celebrating You and Perfect Sentiments. This is a one-piece stamp set and a one-piece die set that matches. So instead of just stamping one sentiment at a time, you can do a whole bunch all in once. You stamp them all in once and you die cut them all in once. So just to make this one, I got all of these made at the same time. It makes it so much easier. So this is the Miss Your Smile set. And now we're gonna move on to the Joyful Peonies. Compared to the stencil we just used that only had 2 marks on it, this one has it on all 4 corners. So I am going to line up these 3 to the edge of the paper. And we're starting with the flower part first. And I'm starting with the lightest color again. I'm going with spun sugar. It's such a pretty one, spun sugar. And voila, there's your first layer. Going to dry this. And then we move on. So here's a good example of what I told you, how it switches between flowers and leaves. So your stencil number 2 is the leaves. And I would like to continue with the flowers first. So I'm going to stencil number 3. I'm gonna line up my 3 corners. And at the same time, have a look at your image that you already did. Because that is a little bit of a guide for you as well. And then my next color is Kitsch Flamingo. Isn't that beautifully detailed already? Just 2 layers of stencils. And for that detail, I'm going to use scattered straw. It's just 2 little areas. That's it already. Now we're going back to stencil number 2. And we're gonna do the lightest green Twisted Citron again. That's what we're start with. Oh, this is pretty. I didn't use this set yet, so to me it's a surprise as well what the end result is gonna look like. I'm gonna dry this one, and then we have 1 more layer to go. And for everything you shop in the store, you can use code MMmedia, and that will give you 20% off of everything. Okay, I'm gonna line up the last one. And that's gonna be mowed lawn again for some darker details. There we go. Oh my goodness, that's so pretty. Now let me quickly dry that before I'm gonna ruin it by putting my fingers in. Okay. So these are the two that we made today. So like we said, the category stencils is such a big category because of course you cannot just use Distress Oxide inks. I mean, that's a favorite medium that we all like at Paper Issues to use with stencils. But these stencils can be used with different kinds of media, with molding paste, texture paste. You can color molding paste. You can use Vicky Boutin crayons with her stencil brushes. There's plenty possibilities with stencils. So we're gonna show you different ways in another Mixed Media Monday video. Today it was just a focus on Pink Fresh Studios layering stencils. And they are so amazing. I'm just showing you these two today, but check them all out at paperissues.com. Thank you so much for joining me this week at Mixed Media Monday. And we're back next Monday with another video. Have a good one, guys. Bye.